Well,
hi, everyone.
it says it's muted.
Welcome to Neighbor Nights for the month of May. We have Christine Favilla with us from the Sierra Club, and she's going to be speaking about the Three Rivers Project. We're just going to wait about 1 more minute to see if anyone else joins us on Zoom, and then we'll get started. All right, we are going to get started, and I'm going to pass it over to Christine.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Christine Favilla, and I am with the Sierra Club of the Illinois chapter. And I am here to give a brief overview about our Three Rivers project and to also let you know about some different volunteer opportunities that are coming up. So I've put together a slideshow. I'm not going to read off of it word for word because I'm assuming that everyone here is able to do that, and it just seems like a waste of time to do that. I'll give some narrative as we go through the project. So the Three Rivers Project is, like I said, of the Illinois chapter of the Sierra Club. The Sierra Club is a national organization, and so it has chapters in every state. The National Sierra Club works on legislative issues that are federal in nature, like the Clean Water Act and the Clean Air Act. In order to get more local, each chapter works on their own issues. So the Illinois State chapter works on state legislative issues, like the Clean Energy Jobs Act that was passed later this year. Is everybody able to hear me? Is there maybe give a reaction of a thumbs up since no one has their camera on? All right.
Okay.
All right, Kathy, thank you so very much. And I see Everett's on here. Hi, how are you? So as we delve a little bit deeper into the kind of the bureaucracy of the Sierra Club, we have the Illinois chapter, and within that we have 14 groups. So the Sierra Club's Piasa Palisades group, of which Everett used to be an executive committee member of, covers 7 counties in the central west side of Illinois. And going a little bit smaller is the Three Rivers Project. I have 2 other staff persons, and I will talk about them and their names in a little bit, but we cover just 3 counties, Madison, Jersey, and Calhoun County. And so most of the work I'm going to talk about is done in this region where three of the great rivers come together at this amazing confluence. We've got the Mississippi, the Illinois, and the Missouri rivers that are all coming together and providing this just spectacular natural area that has different geographical and flora and fauna species that you will not find elsewhere. And it's also a flyway for a lot of the migratory waterfowl that we're seeing come up through our area right now. I'm going to take one moment and put myself on mute and move my computer so that I can see the folks that are in the room. Thank you so much for letting me do that. All right, so the Three Rivers Project it's not letting me go. Our mission is to preserve the integrity of the rivers, the wetlands, forests, and open spaces, and the floodplains of the Piasa Palisades region, while also helping to build vibrant and sustainable communities. We get a rather substantial, wonderful grant for the last 20 years each year, and they are very specific in how they would like us to facilitate and move through our mission. And in order to do that, they are asking us to do education, community participation, administrative advocacy, and partnership building. This is just a picture from, oh gosh, 12 years ago at the Nature Institute at one of our Earth Days. As far as our education, I have just listed a few of the different events that we put on. We work with a lot of different groups like Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts, Youth Build, which is out of Lewis and Clark Community College, Head Start, which has several different facilities nearby, and the Riverbender Community Center, which is just now opening up again after the pandemic. We have really helped on the educational front for curriculum for our Mississippi, which is utilized by National Great Rivers Research and Education Centers, summer camps, and also camps on living lands and water barges. We've been heavily involved with the Water Stewardship Festival since its inception. And it used to be a really large committee that would put that festival on. Now it seems to kind of just be like clockwork. So we don't really have to meet that often, but we still love to be there. It is something put on by National Great Rivers Research and Education Center and Lewis and Clark Community College. And it covers the 7 counties that Lewis and Clark Community College reaches out to, and all of their 5th graders that are eligible to come. We also are trained in several different educational pieces like Riverwatch, Project Wet, Growing Up Wild, Flying Wild, and we're an Envirothon partner with the SIUE community. We do a lot of educational events that are not traditional. So we aren't necessarily going into classrooms all the time. We're working with them, at their garden space, at their homes and businesses. We're doing workshops at Old Bakery Beer Company, anywhere we can meet the community where they are. And some of the ones that are listed on the right-hand side, like Grow Solar Metro East, are things that happen every single month. And that might not be something a paid person like myself is doing. It might be a volunteer that we've trained. And before I go any further, I wanted to talk about the other 2 individuals who are considered Three Rivers Project staff, and that is Virginia Wolf-Filey. She is also a Godfrey trustee, and they have a finance committee meeting. So she is at the Village Hall in Godfrey right now and cannot join us. Excuse me. And then we have Hannah Lee Flath. She is our communications specialist, and we share her with the Illinois chapter. So we get her for about 50% of the time, which has been wonderful. It's something that for the last 19 years we had to do on our own, and I'm not saying we did it very well. And it's wonderful to have Hannah help us with our education news going out into the communities. One I wanted to mention that is happening right now is a partnership with Trees Forever. And not only is it a conservation activity, it's an educational activity as well. The main partner is National Great Rivers Research and Education Center, which is where I am right now. And they received a grant from Trees Forever to work in the city of Alton to try and bring a lot of trees into the neighborhoods along bike and pathways towards school buses and places of work and public transportation, as well as in different city parks. So you can see our partners include Parks and Rec, Public Works, the Cool City Committee, and our project, as well as the Trees Forever staff. And also Alton Main Street is going to have a little bit of a touch on this as well. We've been planting like crazy. We have planted, I think at this point, 58 trees, and we'll total at 87. So all of these places except for the Broadway corridor have some or most of the trees in. We will have one more planting date, and that will be listed at the end for volunteer opportunities. And then I'll tell you exactly where those are located. So besides the planting date that is coming up next week, we are in need of volunteers for watering. Most of our trees already have what we call gator bags. So they hold 20 gallons of water, and they slowly release them into basically the base around the tree. The ones that are in more natural areas like Piasa Park and the Wadlow Restoration Site, we have 5-gallon buckets that are sitting right next to it with a small hole in it, gravel to hold it down and help filter the water. And those have to be filled a couple times a week as well. Besides the water, we also have deer fencing that's up, and we're already noticing some of the trees are growing rapidly, and we need to make sure they're not growing sideways through the fencing, that they are staked properly. So there's just a little bit of help we're going to need for the first year or two as these trees get established. We've chosen all native trees, all native to Illinois species trees. So after the first couple of years of this watering and maintenance, they should do pretty well all on their own. I mentioned the Water Stewardship Festival. It has been going on at the campus of Lewis and Clark Community College for 20 years. And I am very proud to say that I was a member of that very first group that put it together with Mr. Marv Mundy, which was a teacher at Lewis and Clark Community College. Wonderful man. He's retired. He's passed the torch on to a couple different other teachers. And now National Great Rivers works with Lewis and Clark to put that event on every year. We also have teachers that we work really closely with to make sure that we're meeting the Illinois curriculum guidelines. We do education at the Family Fishing Fair at Pure Marquette State Park. This is a picture of gyoteku, which is a Japanese fish printing, and we really go into detail about why Japanese fishermen would have taken prints of native fish. And then, of course, that ties us into invasive species like the Asian carp in our area. We do a lot with the Girl Scouts. You see the picture on the left is we're doing a watershed table, talking about pollutants, talking about rainfall and how everybody lives in a watershed. And on the right, we're actually making bath and body products such as lip balms and lotions that are made out of all natural products and do not contain any of the 12 main chemicals that we're trying to make sure are no longer allowed in our bath and body products. Along the same lines, not only education, but reaching out to the community, there's these other events. And I will kind of not read this slide because I'll be talking about each one of those things in a little bit more detail. The picture on the right is when Riverbend Earth Day would happen at the Nature Institute. And we outgrew that site. There was nowhere for any of our participants to park. It was really kind of dangerous on the roads and to the neighbors. So we had to move it to Piasa Harbor. And then after several rain and tornado events, we've moved it again to Old Bakery Beer Company, where we just had our Earth Day celebration on the 30th of April. The Earthtones Festival is our 16th year. And it is originally a then Lieutenant Governor Pat Quinn initiative called It's Our River Day. And it celebrated rivers all throughout the state of Illinois. And they asked us to do either education, conservation, or recreation around the state's waterways. Well, we decided we wanted to do all three here. And when that program kind of left the state after governors changed over, we continued to carry it on and just renamed it Mississippi Earthtones Festival. We'll be back at the Riverfront Amphitheater from noon until 10 p.m. We'll have at least 52 booths on different conservation activities and artists that make their crafts out of environmentally friendly products and the like. So mark your calendars. I don't have a slide for the next thought, but the following Saturday, I will say, so Mississippi Earthtones Festival is always on the 3rd Saturday of September. The following one, the 4th Saturday of September, is the Great Mississippi River Cleanup. And we work with Beasley's Fish and the boaters out of Grafton, and we literally load into boats, go out to the islands and shores that we previously scouted for trash, and we clean up. And we usually bring in a couple of tons of trash. It is very rewarding activity. These are just pictures of Arbor Day and Earth Day. Godfrey still has a very vibrant Arbor Day celebration, and with the Trees Forever project in Alton, we're hoping to get Alton signed back up as a Tree City USA to have Arbor Day events. They do a lot of tree plantings, which I think counts towards that. So we're going to work with them on some educational events as well. The third thing we do is admin advocacy. So this is kind of the policy wonky stuff that I love and that I went to college for. Making changes usually starts with the different policies and rules and regulations that exist, working with communities to make sure that those serve them. And if not, how can we change them to make it work better for not only our human communities, but for our natural ecosystems as well. So we do a lot of work on air quality and water permits. We attend a lot of the Corps of Engineers meetings, including next week. They have their quarterly Upper Mississippi River Basin Association meeting. It moves throughout the Mississippi main stem states. It happens quarterly. It's a 2-day event. You get really good updates on all the habitat restoration projects and also on the development projects that are happening mostly with infrastructure with the barges. So we'll be heavily involved next week on those meetings. And we also work with local and regional businesses on stormwater and best management plans, such as the Coles in Alton. They did a fantastic job when they were coming in, and we actually, awarded them with a plaque. And so instead of going out and, a lot of people think that we're going to hit people over the head with a hammer on rules and regulations. We also try and celebrate the wins as well. I was just today notified by the mayor of Alton that I will be on the Alton Riverfront Development Commission. I guess I will get sworn in next week. Super excited about that. The Alton Riverfront has had a lot of changes happen throughout the year. The decades. And Alton Area Landmarks Association was heavily involved in making sure that our riverfront, also called Russell Commons, is going to be preserved for the people and not just the raised 4-lane highway that was going to go through it several years ago. They had several lawsuits, several public meetings. We were very much in support with them and pleased at what they were doing to try and preserve Alton and its landmarks. I mean, it's iconic riverfront. I'll go into more of those details in a little bit here. This is a picture probably from 15 years ago, but it still looks the same. And it still happens all the time. Living Lands and Water has an incredible facility. It's a barge, a classroom, living quarters, and barges to collect the recycling and trash throughout the Mississippi and Ohio rivers mostly. They were here a couple weeks ago. They did a big cleanup in downtown St. Louis. And then we did one in Alton, and we collected just under a ton of trash with 5 volunteers only and 2 boats. So it's amazing the work they do. When they cannot come to town, they're on the Ohio, for instance, for a couple of years, we work with Missouri River Relief. They're often very busy too. And so we go with the Beasley brothers out of Grafton or work with the Gateway Greenway Confluence Trash Bash. So there's plenty of opportunities that we try and delve in and do river cleanups and river road cleanups. We have a section of the river road for the, I'm going to forget the name. Basically the highway cleanups when you adopt a mile. And so we do that quarterly, but we also do 2 other stretches twice a year. I said, our focus areas are on the big rivers, wetlands and open space, and then healthy and sustainable communities. So this will go into a little bit more detail. For several years, we were the regional host for Mississippi River Network's One Mississippi representative. There were representatives in several different states, up and down the 10 main states that border the Mississippi River. And they basically have an outreach and educational campaign called One Mississippi. Unfortunately, right after the beginning of the COVID pandemic, we had to let our host facilities agreement go and our One Mississippi employee go. They have not reinstated that program, so we do not have them anymore. But I work very closely with Mississippi River Network, and we have something coming up called River Days of Action. And so we'll be doing a lot in the area around that, unfortunately, without our One Mississippi staff person, but it'll be fun. Like I said, we do a lot of invasive species removal and river cleanups. Here's some pictures of some awesome volunteers. The Pure Marquette invasive species removal has a lot to do with our cabin build project. And that is going to be happening next weekend up at Pure Marquette and Camp Watoga, where we will literally replace the roof on, probably going to say it wrong, I believe it is up in Unit 4, and it is their first aid roof. So it's a larger building. And we're basically trying to take these incredible facilities that were built in the 1930s with the Conservation Corps and make sure that they don't become dilapidated and that they can still be used, because they can house like 125 people. So church groups and Boy Scout groups have been using them literally almost 100 years. This is a picture of them up on the roof, doing a fantastic job. I don't get on the roof. I usually am an invasive species removal person. This is another one of our sustainable communities type of initiative, Eat a Rainbow Education. We'll be doing that very shortly here in a couple weeks with the YWCA and probably again with Riverbend Head Start. I purchase as much locally as I can, a rainbow of vegetables and fruits, cut them up, and we talk to the children about what bright red means for your body. What does that do for your cells and for your organs? And then they get to taste things. They also get to choose what they would like to grow in their garden that we have at the Y. So it's kind of their introduction to their gardening experience. And it's always just a fantastic, I can't tell you how many moms have been like, you got them to eat cauliflower raw? Yep. Just offer it to them. Don't make a big deal about it. All their friends are doing it, and it's amazing. The Green Gift Bazaar, gosh, we've been doing that for, I think, 15 years. So that is always Small Business Saturday. So the Saturday after Thanksgiving. And we just got word that the Post Commons would love to host us again. So we will be there this coming fall. We had a lot to do with the U.S. Steel Trust during some litigation, and we were able to secure a ton of different projects fundings. And this is just a plaque that was offered up during one of the events. Our urban farm tours went wonderful once again. We got the pandemic, it slowed down, but we'll probably have that back on next year, as well as a native plant yard tour. The pollinator party will happen this year. It's going to be out at La Vista. We're putting in, well, we're hoping to have the sculpture put in by then. And I have a picture of the sculpture here in just a little bit, but we do have a pollinator project, already has a pollinator tree sculpture. And then we have a 1/3 acre prairie, which is going to be expanded next year to 2/3 acre, and it will have its own sculpture as well. The party will be just 2 hours on the morning. We'll have a lot of information, fun, and food for families. We're heavily involved with the Milton Schoolyard Garden. If you've not been and you're in the Alton area, it's something you've got to go check out. They are over off of Brown, I guess Brown turns into Milton right at that point. The La Vista Prairie Sculptures you will see is basically a honeycomb. And it is 13 foot by 7 foot, so that as you're walking up the path, you'll be able to look through it into the prairie. It'll be kind of like a portal, if you will. I don't know if everybody online can see my, I don't know if they could see my view. It's not on there. Okay, cool. So then on the right-hand side, that's been there for quite some years. It's a pollinator tree, and it was made by a local artist, two of them, and friends of mine from the Lewis and Clark Community College. And it is made out of all recycled steel rebars and shows butterflies, bats, and bees that are our pollinators in Illinois. There are a lot of great events in the area that we're really lucky to be involved in. These are just pictures. I will say on the right-hand side, we always have a unique art component by the Riverbend Yarn Bombers. And it's just a great group of crocheters, and they literally crocheted a river in a canoe. And kids were able to get in it. It was a great photo op. It was a lot of fun. The Metro Screen Alliance, Mega, started out of the Sierra Club, and it has its, I mean, it's its own thing now. We're just a part of it. It's become its own nonprofit. They are working heavy on clean energy throughout Illinois. They've got a great group leader who also is on our board of directors, Miss Toni Opel. And she also has a blog called Green Gal of the Midwest, if you want to check it out. She is an amazing chef, but she's got a lot of energy and really has been directing clean energy projects in the area for quite some time. So I wanted to go delve a little bit into our permit work, basically based on the Clean Water Act. There are a couple different kinds of permits. If you're a landowner or if you're a business, you're wanting to do any kind of development, you have to go through different parts of the federal government and their permits. So the NPDES is basically, the easiest way to describe it is if there's a pipe coming from that facility going into a waterway, that is a point source. You know exactly where it is. The point sources, that is, I'm sorry, I guess I said that wrong. NPDES is when you don't have a point source. You're a farmer, for instance. You have a hog farm, and there are there's a lot of waste going from your hog farm into a waterway, and you can't really, when you stand in that waterway, really point to who's making that problem exist. And then there's point sources that, like I said, have a very obvious, you know, there's a pipe. So the Drinking Water Act also has some different rules and regulations and permits for folks. The public water systems have to go through a Safe Drinking Water Act regulations. And that basically has the nationwide EPA established, environmental protection agencies. They have established and enforce standards. But 10% of people that don't have drinking sources coming from Illinois American Water or anybody else that's providing that, like we get our water from the Mississippi River, they don't have to follow that. It's not protected, which means it can also be contaminated. And if it's from a farm, you may or may not know where that's coming from. So that's kind of where I'm going with some of my permit stuff here. That's just a great little diagram. Point sources can't be traced. And this is something we do, like I said, with the Girl Scouts. When we do our watershed table talk, we talk about, you know, Uncle Ronnie likes to change oil for his neighbors out of their cars, and then it, you know, it sits there and rusts, and eventually it goes into the pond, and the pond during a high water event goes into the stream, and guess what? That eventually gets to the river and then down into the Gulf of Mexico. So there's a lot of opportunities for these different types of effluents or poisons or toxins, or however you want to say it, to get into our waterway. The clean water permit limits the length of those to 5 years. So every 5 years, they have to reapply and they get renewed. They're very short-staffed right now. They're just kind of rubber stamping them through. So unless you have groups that are looking constantly at the websites and seeing what's being submitted, you just don't even know that that's happening out there, because it's just going to get reissued basically. Unless there's been a lot of violations. If there's been violations, then they kind of take a little bit of a closer look to it. And this is where the Sierra Club comes in. We do a lot of different water work. That first one's talking about the aquatic invasive species, and now there has been something called the Brandon Road Project, which is basically a barrier going into the Great Lakes, which hopefully will stop the spread of invasive species. So that is something we don't necessarily work a lot on right now. But the next bullet point, reducing nutrients into the Illinois waterways from agriculture and urban sources, is something that we do. We have a clean water team. We meet every week on Tuesdays at 9 o'clock and go over whatever permits, whatever else we found out and what's new, and should we comment on it? Do we want to contact the Sierra Club groups that are close by? It's really kind of just trying to be those eyes and ears on the ground. Not saying that we can comment on every single one that comes across, because sometimes it's very overwhelming, especially in December and January. It's like when everybody's planning for their next project for the spring or summer, that's when they're putting their permit in. So while everybody's on Christmas break, that's when they're all filed. It's unbelievable every year how slammed you get in December and January looking at these. But basically there are certain lists, something called the 303D, which is a regulation to really try and protect those natural ecosystems and streams. If you get on the 303D list, your stream is polluted and it really needs some help. And they're probably going to be looking upstream to find out where that pollution is coming from and what best management practices can be put in. Maybe it's just a buffer strip, some native forbs, some trees to soak up that before it hits the creek. There is also, I don't know if I have that on the next slide or not. Yes. No, I don't. I don't actually, it's because I don't really work on it, but there is a new regulation that's come out, and it is for every wastewater facility up and down every water body in the state of Illinois, and small or large, those elimination systems, those ponds or any kind of cleanup structures that they have in their wastewater system now has to be regulated, and they have to come up with a plan. Unfortunately, the EPA does not have anybody assigned to help them come up with a plan. So it's a lot to ask. If you have, if you're in a small town of, you have 1,000 people, you're very small plant, or you share one, like, Alton, East Alton, Wood River, share these particular type of facilities, they have a lot to wade through on these permits to find out, are they doing things right? Is there something else they're supposed to be doing? Are they going to be in violation? So the Sierra Club actually has a team that goes and talks to all of these folks. We have webinars. We've been trained by the EPA to try and help them work through these permits, because it's going to be law, I believe, in 2024. Every one of these facilities has to have a permit in place, and like I said, they're not really getting any help. So that's one thing the Sierra Club tries to do, is help these processors so that they're doing things correctly. One thing I do is a 404 permit. So if there's any kind of discharge of dredge material into the United States navigable waterways, then they have to have a permit. So for instance, there was one that we commented on not too long ago where they were going to put a new barge mooring facility into a downtown area, across from a downtown area on an island. And they would have had to have taken out a lot of natural ecosystems. And they were suggesting that they would do an open water dispersal. So they would just take a pipe and pump it out into the river, and then build this mooring facility, and the residents were absolutely up in arms. So we helped the residents come up with comments and meet the deadline that said everything that we knew legally they kind of had to say, and we got it stopped. So that was a great win. I imagine this company will probably come back. They're going to alter things. They're going to do it a little bit more in with the community and their desires. So it's not like we're stopping them, but at least it's giving all the agencies a heads up that, hey, the community is not real happy about this. So you need to be working with them if this company is going to come in here and permanently have 32 barges across from their downtown beautiful river walkway. So yeah, so I look at 404 permits every week, and we have team members that look at the others. Like I said, we're trying to do educational programming with those communities. We have a water sentinels group where we actually go out and do testing on waters, chemical testing. We also have a local group that does river watch, which is the macroinvertebrate testing. And we work in local watersheds. We have a call every couple of months for the 14 Sierra Club groups, finding out what they're doing. Oh, and NARP is the bottom one, the nutrient assessment and reduction plans. That's what the wastewater facilities have to do. So we're really engaging in that on a local level. This is just a sneak peek on what my database looks like. It was obviously from last fall, but we have a volunteer named Rod Allen. His name's on the left there. I don't know if I should have had his name up there, but he's fantastic. He goes through, he gets a notice there's a permit, he goes through and he susses out all the information so that we can easily go through and find out what county it's in, what Sierra Club group that touches. Is it going to be an issue? As you see the second one down, they're wanting to expand a landfill into a perennial tributary and a little bit over an acre of wetlands. So we wanted to make sure that if they're going to do that, their mitigation is at least 1-to-1, if not 1-to-2, so that they would have to put in 2 acres of wetlands somewhere else. Now we all know that you can't really create a wetland as it should be, but there are a lot of really wonderful conservationists and biologists and every kind of ologist, hydrologist you could imagine that are out there working on these new wetland mitigation banks is what they're called. Oh, I think I may have deleted the rest of the slides after that. Yeah, Centerville was, I don't know if anybody is familiar. Centerville is down near Cahokia, which actually is in the Kaskaskia group of the Sierra Club. And they don't have clean drinking water there. And so there's a lot of people working with that community, getting them grants through the EPA, getting them grants through the new Infrastructure Jobs Act to try and get in new infrastructure to make sure they have clean water, because they have to drink out of bottles every single day. This kind of just talks about what I just talked about. Sorry, it's probably in the wrong order. Some of those, like I said, we have nutrient pollution, we have different effluents coming in. This would be some of the causes. Septic tanks need to be maintained once a year. Jersey County doesn't have any office making sure that the residents are doing that. Jersey County does not have many sewer systems. So there's a lot of septic tank systems. So when you look at the impaired water list around Jersey County, you see a lot of creeks and streams that are degraded because of the private septic tanks are not being maintained well. Combined sewers, if you live in Alton, you know that they're doing incredible work right now. Pretty much every day I run into this road's closed, because they are separating out the stormwater and sewage pipes, which is fantastic. It's going to take millions of dollars and a lot of work, and Illinois Americans doing a great job on that. Because there was water seeping out of our aged sewer pipes, and also because there's the stormwater would just overfill the sewage pipes, and then that overfill will go straight into the Mississippi River and not to the wastewater. Like I mentioned, the improper livestock waste management, CAFOs, confined animal feeding operations, are pretty much our biggest. In Illinois and Iowa, they are the biggest contributors to nutrient pollution. They currently do not have any regulations on that is something the conservation community has been pushing for. And there's a lot going on with the hypoxia task force. Hypoxia is that dead zone that we find down in the Gulf of Mexico and other areas. And there's task force members in each state and on a federal agency. They recently had a bunch of different conferences and workshops saying, we've done a ton of work and with NARPs, you know, with these pipes, with the areas we know we can collect and change, we're not making a dent. There's still a huge problem, and it's because of these confined animal feeding operations. So that's something that we'll probably be hearing a lot more about. And I don't know that it's going to be very political for many people to say that out loud, but I'm the Sierra Club, so I'm saying that out loud. There's the blue-green algae, the cyanobacteria, that we're having a lot of problems with. In Illinois especially, it causes a lot of respiratory infections. It kills a lot of dogs who are playing in creeks and lakes. And that is because of this large quantity of nutrient effluent. So nitrogen and phosphorus going into our waterways, mixing with the, feeding the algae basically, and stealing a lot of the oxygen. And that's something that we're trying to deal with on a state basis and also on a natural basis. Causes a wide range of illnesses. And like I said, it looks like blue and green paint. So if you're walking your dog and there's a creek and they're wanting to get in it and you notice that there's something on top of it that doesn't quite look right, please avoid it. The nutrient sources are listed on this slide. It just kind of gives a general idea of how it gets down to that dead zone. The National Hypoxia Task Force is trying to reduce it by 45% by 2035. So I imagine there's going to be in some farm bill coming up soon. Hopefully we'll have some rules and regulations. We're going to get a lot of pushback. But if we're ever going to get a hold of this problem and make some changes, we're going to have to deal with that hard topic of agriculture. Illinois has their very own task force, and they have been really targeting a 25% reduction of phosphorus and 15% in nitrates. None of this, like I said, is regulated. It's all voluntary. These are a lot of really wonderful pollution solutions that are already going on. Most of them are done by willing landowners. They understand the problem. They realize they are farming corn and soybeans up here, but the shrimp farmers in the Gulf don't have a crop anymore. And so I mean, it's not that they're heartless. They understand. They're really taking some measures to do it. And so that conservation tillage is something we're seeing happen more and more frequently. I think I came to a neighbor night probably 4 months ago where they were talking about that. And it's amazing to look at what the different soils, how that really filters the water through based on if you've left, you know, your corn stalks on there or not, really. There's a lot of programs that are oversubscribed. We need a lot more money put into them. They want to do the right thing. They can't really take their acreage out of production unless they get a little bit of help for conservation reserve programs and such. So we're constantly asking for more money to be appropriated for those management solutions. I won't go into a whole lot of inland flooding, just kind of based on time. But I do want to say that there are, if you are in the Metro East area, there's a wonderful project going on up above Grafton, the Illinois Waterway, with the Mississippi River City and Towns Initiative and Ducks Unlimited. And they're putting in some new wetland acreage and floodplain acreage where they're setting the levees back and allowing the floodwaters to come in and be in that land that they're supposed to be in when it's high water. So that's going to really help places like Alton and downtown Alton to get hit. So there are a lot of river flooding issues like that are kind of getting taken care of. But what we notice are inland flooding issues in the bottoms, the American bottoms, which are a little bit south of here. It's kind of the Batcher area, which basically means from bluff to bluff. It's the water coming off of those bluffs because of the impervious surfaces of parking lots and whatnot. And it's going down, and it is really hitting a lot of the low income neighborhoods harder than anyone else. So we're seeing, like in Centerville, that inland flooding is what's pushing their water quality to really tank on them. Talked about that. Oh, this is something I'm super excited about. We are having these made right now. On the right hand side, you'll see a pixelated picture of it's going to be 6 inches by 3.5 inches. It is a hard decal with a clear UV coating, and we'll be working with volunteers on June 4th as our big first push, hoping to get the mayors there, do it in downtown Alton. But it'll basically be an educational campaign on the storm drains to let people know that really only rain goes to the drain. No dumping should go in here. Grass clippings should not go in here. Oil, anything like that needs to just really stay out of the drains because it goes straight into the Mississippi River. So please be looking for opportunities. June 4th is our kickoff, and then we'll have kits available for different groups, church groups, youth groups, whoever wants to, take 10 of these out and put them in their neighborhoods where they think people are walking by and would be educated about it. We're getting 150 of them, so it's going to be pretty exciting. That's part of our River Days of Action, which is Mississippi River Network. They're going to be doing a lot of water testing and cleanups, and this is what we decided to do in our area. One of the last things I wanted to mention is citizen science. There are a lot of online apps that you can get. I'll talk about I'm going to talk about one of them, I think, in particular, that I use almost daily. But there are a lot of what we call bio blitzes that happen in the region for certain timeframes. So the Nature Institute might have a bio blitz in the middle of summer because they're really wanting to look at what plant species are around. We're going to be doing them quite a bit with caterpillar counts at the Wadlow restoration site to kind of gather and analyze what type of caterpillars are there, because that also has to do with what type of birds are going to come in to eat those caterpillars. So it kind of gives you a snapshot of what's going on, but it also builds just a crowdsourcing database, which is fantastic. iNaturalist, it's free. I use it all the time. I also use Picture This. It's not, the version I use is not free because I constantly am like, did I plant that native plant or is that a weed? And I literally take a picture of it, it scans it, and in a minute, it tells me. It crowdsources from everybody else's photos and everybody else's comments and scientists who are on there at that time, it tells you. So if you want to download iNaturalist, you will probably see, Heartlands Conservancy. I'm not sure if NGRREC does one, but you'll see, I know the Watershed Nature Center in Edwardsville and the Nature Institute, a lot of different native conservation groups use this app. It's very easy. You take a picture, you upload it, you either suggest what you think it is or you leave it blank and hit load suggestions. And that's what it does. It keeps track of wildlife. I can look in my neighborhood. There's tons of people who use it in my neighborhood, and I can kind of get a sense of what's going on. This was in my yard. So on the left-hand side is where I uploaded it. I hit the what did you see? It tells me where I'm at, tells me the date, and then on the right-hand side is the next screen, and it tells me what kind of sedge it thinks it is. And then you can kind of go through and think, it's not that, or it's something else, but it is amazing how close it usually gets. So before I go into the volunteer opportunities, I wanted to list our many partners because some of our opportunities won't maybe be listed on the Sierra Club site. They might be listed on any one of these sites. And we love these partners. We couldn't be doing our work without them. They've got incredible leaders and volunteer networks throughout all of them. I'm not going to read them because there are a couple of screens. And those are our current ones. I actually removed ones that we haven't worked with since the pandemic. Of course, they may very well come back online. Like actually Principia College, we have not worked with, but we will. I absolutely know we will. All right. So what we're looking for right now is we are looking for people to help with that permit database. It is someone that doesn't mind going in and taking the information out of a piece of paper and putting it into different columns into a spreadsheet. It says 2 to 3 hours a week, but we really are only getting 1 permit a week at this time. Most everybody who's wanting to do something has already submitted their permits, like I said, in the winter and spring. We have great training sessions. We have a really good dedicated group of employees up and down the state working on this. And then these are our local things happening. The storm drain stenciling is on June 4th. We're going to be meeting on Broadway at the old Favilla parking lot. I can't ever say that. It used to be the scooter parking lot. It is right across the street from Bluff City Grove. We'll be doing that, I believe, at 10 a.m. Citizen science opportunities. Whenever you want to come out, count caterpillars or do river watch with me, let me know. Native plantings, our very first one we're doing with a great group of volunteers from Winchester, which seems an unlikely partner, but they want to volunteer. We'll take them. So we're going to be doing that on May 23rd, and then we'll be planting a lot of native trees on May 25th at Hampton Gardens, Riverfront Park, and the Broadway corridor. I did want to put in there our funding. We mostly get our funding from a local private foundation. They want to remain anonymous. We are very lucky to have support of Old Bakery Beer Company. We usually do what's called the Buzzed Beer Festival. So the Buzzed refers to every beer that's going to be there from any participating brewery that brings their beers that day, which there are usually 20 of. They have to identify what pollinator helped produce what ingredient so that it has a connection to our pollinators for Buzzed Beer. So we usually get a cut of that day, and then usually like once a year for Drink for a Cause. Alton Main Street usually applies for the IEPA, the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency scale grant for our river cleanups. And that's one thing I wanted to mention. The Sierra Club is privately funded. We don't get any government funds. We don't ask for money from the EPA, the Department of Natural Resources, anybody like that, because we are maybe going to comment negatively on something, some kind of permit, and we don't want to be entangled in that. We also don't take money from a lot of the industry, even though we may end up partnering, like I said, with Winchester for their volunteers, because we have realized coming together, we can find a consensus where we want to work together on issues. And then sponsorships of events. So if anybody wants to get involved with the Mississippi Earthtones Festival, it's a free festival that we put on for the community every year. It costs us thousands and thousands of dollars. And we continue to do that and to ask for sponsorships because we think it's important for people to be able to come to a free event. We don't want to ever have to charge. So if you want to be a sponsor of the Mississippi Earthtones Festival this year, we'll make sure to get your donor information out to the public. Everybody will know how awesome you are. And I was going to see if there's any questions here or online. I see some things in the chat. Kathy says hi. You can feel free to take yourself off mute if you have any questions or comments. Yeah, but hopefully that means I was very thorough, or I talked so fast you couldn't understand. All right, I'll close the chat. And then the last slide, I believe, should be my, contact information. Virginia Wolf Biley, difficult to spell. I think I probably could do it in my sleep though, because I correct people so many times on it. And then myself, those are our cell phone numbers. We are not in the office very frequently. Sierra Club still has a COVID restriction for work out of the office. So that's just not what's happening. Kathy wants to know when I sleep. Yeah, I have been really trying to get to bed around 11:30 at night because mornings come early. But yeah, don't worry. I work hard and I sleep really hard. Knock on wood, I don't have any trouble doing that. We've moved. We're on 112 Front Street. Like I said, the office really isn't open for the public. You want to come check it out. It is a beautiful building. We rent from Penny Schmidt, fantastic landlord. We have a view of the river and the bridge and the new Argosy parking lot. So we don't really have much green space in front of us. But we also offer up our office for other nonprofits and local groups, even book clubs. They want to meet there. It's a beautiful space, and we'd love to invite you into it. So feel free to get a hold of us. Like I said, I'm just putting our cell phone numbers down because we aren't really there to check the phone very frequently. And Virginia's up at camp all week up at Pere Marquette, fixing those cabins. So that's all I've got. Great.
Well, thank you so much, Christine. It was great to have you with us tonight in person, and for everyone on Zoom, thank you so much for joining us. We'll put this video online on our YouTube, so it will be available for anyone that would like to watch it in the future. And keep an eye out for next month. Our Neighbor Nights will feature the One Mississippi organization and the Mississippi River Network. And they're going to be talking about some policies that are coming out that could potentially affect the river in our area. And hopefully a positive way.
Oh, no, it's going to be wonderful.
Yeah. So thank you guys so much for coming. And if there's not any more questions, I'm going to close it out and we'll see you guys next month.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.